What's going on, guys? This is Damien from The Lookout, and I am here with BT26 Archetype tier list coming in clutch before the ban list. Maybe, I don't know, I can see the future. But today we're just gonna go over all of the BT26 archetypes, following which after the ban list we're gonna have like the big metagame tier list, you know. Anyway, before we begin, huge shout out to the Coffee Club, our lovely patrons. These are our $2 and up patrons that buy us coffee. They keep this crazy content grind going. And guys, thanks a lot for your support. If you wish to join the Coffee Club, link to a patron is in the description below. And I think that's about everything. Roll the video. Okay, we're doing only an archetype tier list. And then I'm going on a brief vacation. And when I'm back, like mid-October-ish, we're gonna do the metagame one, right? Like with like 100 liters or whatever. So yeah, we're just gonna go over the archetypes today. I was considering ban list. I don't think that anything that gets hit is gonna change much, so let's just go over it. Tier 0 OP should be banned, nothing goes here. Tier 1 meta defining, the best decks in the meta. Tier 2 competitive, so while meta defining will win most of the time and they'll get like top 4, top 8 most of the time, competitive decks can still win and they will be showing up in the top 16s quite often. A rogue decks, this is your oddball deck that shows up here and there in the top 16. You probably can't win with it, but you can top with a rogue deck. Tier 4 locals, for a millionth time, I feel like I'm repeating myself every time we do this tier list. There is nothing wrong with a deck being in locals. That just means that the deck isn't up for, you know, competitive gameplay. Some of the best decks in Dragon Ball are in locals, like some of the most fun ones to play. So I don't think that a deck is bad because it's in locals. It just means that it's not there, you know, to actually go and compete. Tier 5 trash, that's self-explanatory, and tier 6 is the Towa token tier. So let's start this is just in some random weird tier maker order. So we'll just start off with Gogeta. Give me 1 second and I will bring up the card here, so that it is easier for all of you on YouTube who want to follow this. So here we go. Gogeta doesn't need to be that big, but yeah. Okay, so this deck has well, it's clearly been made to win worlds. Every time at the very end of the year when we have the last set, Bandai designs an archetype made specifically to try to win worlds. Last year it was U7. It was obvious that the U7 was pushed to win the World Championship. Then before that it was Gogeta and Sin, and you can tell because all the pricing was Gogeta and Sin and U7. And then it was Red U7 before that. And this year it's Gogeta. So Gogeta is just pushed beyond belief. Now, is this what I'm saying 1000% accurate? I don't know. Like, that's what I feel looking at these archetypes and world's pricing and stuff like that. But is this deck pushed to be the best deck in the next metagame? Yes. This is the best deck in the next metagame. I mean, like, I think that you're delusional if you feel like this deck isn't exceptionally powerful. So here's basically what you do. Here's what it has going for it. Normal Gogetas are great. Super Saiyan Gogetas are like meh, but normal ones are amazing. Your leader is a dual attacker and it costs you nothing to do so. Your leader, and he draws 2. Your leader draws 2 and attacks twice. He flies through floodgates. Every single floodgate that doesn't stop a leader, Gogeta will just fly through it. If you're playing Encouraging Presence Monaka, he's a dual double. If you play the 5 cost Gogeta that buffs him by 5k, he's 20k dual, draw 2 cards. Like, the leader is amazing. Then you have the permanent. The permanent says that when you union, instead of doing it from hand, you do it from the drop and you charge Z energy. Like, what? Passively you charge Z energy just by existing, by playing the deck. That's absurd. Defending Friends is forever online. Like, it's always online in this deck. Your Gogetas are great. The boss monster is terrifyingly strong. The boss monster is just absurdly powerful. What else do we have? The secret rare. The secret rare does everything ever. And it's still not gonna see any play because Beast Gohan is just so much better. Like, that's the thing. Bandai can never make the new best let's play this card secret rare as long as Beast Gohan exists in the form that it exists today, because like nothing beats pay to win the game. Beast Gohan should not be able to deal damage on the last life, but it's a tantrum for a different video. So yeah, the secret rare is absurd. You have access to blue good stuff. You don't even need to play a huge engine. You will draw cards like crazy. You draw so much in this deck, it's insane. So, and your Gogetas draw. Your non-Super Saiyan Gogetas draw cards when you play them. So they just replace themselves. This deck is insane. This deck is... where I'm going with it is that if Bandai wanted to make the next tier 1 deck, yes, congratulations, they have absolutely succeeded. They have absolutely succeeded. This is the best deck in the entire set. Probably the best deck in the next format. Now, what isn't is this trash. This is awful. So, this is the third time that I'm filming this tier list. The third time over the last couple of days. Because I wanted to get it ready for vacation. And I've changed my opinion on this deck and on Golden Cooler so many times. And this is the one deck that I've played the least. I've played everything on this list. This is the one that I've played like the least. Actually, yeah, I think like it is. So, yeah, I've went through a lot of deck lists. I've done the how to play. I haven't published it. And it's not coming out at least until I get back. I've done so much research on it and brewed and looked at guides and looked at decks and talked with others and just went through scenarios a billion times. This deck is just bad. I don't think that there's anything that can convince me to play this deck in a competitive setting. There's nothing here. So the deck does one thing. It plays Frieza's Death Ball for free. And it plays Corin's Tower Senzu Bean for free. Okay, those are two things, not one thing. Is that enough for me to consider it even rogue now? Not even close. All of your cards draw. That is true. All of your cards draw, but they don't really draw. You ditch a card and then you play it and you draw one. You just replace the card in your hand. The extra cards are okay, like they're fine. The boss monster is just kind of bad. I think the android one is not the best. The engine is cute. You can get a bunch of attackers for relatively cheap. That's okay. But I feel like the entire payoff of using extra cards from the drop, mind you can use only the activate battle effect, is just kind of meh. Even your leader is just like draw one, discard one. And then you play a card that you discarded and then you draw one again, and congratulations, you just lost one here. So, Saiyan trait makes it so that you... makes it so that you can play Imposing Presence. Keep in mind you can't use it for free. And Android trait gives you nothing. So, okay. Yeah, I just don't feel like there's anything here. Honestly, I've looked at it a billion times. It's fun to play for some people. Now, some people have compared it to whatever Burning Abyss is in Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! So I don't know. But I figured that it's playing stuff from the drop. If this actually played cards from the drop, if this actually played battle cards from the drop, we would be having a completely different conversation. But to run this deck solely so that I can play Frieza's Death Ball for free, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Can it be fun? I'm pretty sure that this can be fun, and I'm gonna put it at locals because of that. I think it can be a fun deck. But is there anything insane here? I just don't see it. So, I might be wrong. I often am. So, I'm not ashamed to admit that. Super 17. Now, the anti-Saiyan killing machine. And I've just said it, so there goes monetization. So, no, fuck no. I'm allowed to say what I want. Haha, YouTube, screw you. So, anyway. Super 17, anti-Saiyan killing machine. This deck is great. I've playtested it a lot. It's one of this deck, Gogeta, Zamasu, and Cooler. Those are the ones that I think I've played the most. So I like this one. I like this one a lot. It's a bit clunky. It, admittedly, I'll not pretend, it is a bit clunky. But it's so goddamn strong. You have 4 copies of Senzubin, technically, with the Z extra. You have 4 copies of Champa with the Z extra. You can swing with your leader up to 3 times. If you run Royal Evolution, you can just flat out do that. Your leader is monstrously big. I mean, honestly, even if you don't use the activate main, your leader, just by existing, gets the Z extra out, becomes 20k, swings once, and then, like, you can restand it if you want to, or you don't even need to do that. You can just use active main on something else. Leader gets like plus 10k, now he's 30. If you use a, if you use a Royal Evolution, he's 35. I mean, yeah, and any of these except the last one can be a double strike. It's a leader beatdown, similar like Gogeta, it just flies through floodgates that don't impact the leader. It generates a lot of Z energy because it's comboing constantly. When it comes to the package itself, there are a couple of things to consider. The 6 cost androids are okay. They're 25. One of them draws and plays the Z extra. The other one minuses by 20 and plays the Z extra. The 7 cost, the crit android is phenomenal. That guy is amazing, especially because you can give him double. So he's double crit. The blocker one is just bad. The incest one, the absorbed android 18 one, that one is just bad. So I think you run like 2 copies. That's it. The crit one is amazing though. The boss monster is okay. Like, I'm not super impressed with the boss monster. I think that it's fine. So I'm more impressed by the crit guy than the boss monster. But it has barriers, so that's cool. I haven't played with the red-green one. Then what else you have is setting up the Z extra is free. And the Z extra discounts your defeating the demon, because it's a Z card that is in the battle area. So you're like, yeah, okay, cool, defeating the demon, let's go. Other than that, yeah, I think that there's not much else to say. On defensive side, you have your explosive dance, you have testing the opposition. You can't use imposing because you're an android. You can use a lot of things because you're an android. I mean, a lot, apparently, anything. Overall, defense might not be the best, but offense is very good. And I think that this deck has a lot of potential to be a competitive deck. I think this one has potential to be very competitive. Just because it minuses so much, it removes everything from the board. And then it just hides behind explosive dance with a Z extra that's a constant double strike threat. Like this deck is amazing. Not meta defining, Jesus Christ. It's tier 2. It's competitive. I don't think that it's tier 1, but I feel like it is definitely tier 2. Then we have Broly. Blue Broly. Bro. Okay, so Broly is bad. That's my TED talk, basically. No, Broly is just bad. I've played some of it. Not as much as some other decks. But yeah, I sat down, I've tested, I've broken it down. You have our how to play guide on the channel. The thing with Broly, oh man, here's the deal. It costs way too much energy, and that's it. Bendy started off nice. The free cost is free. Okay, I mean he's free only if you have Paragus out, but he's free and he's not limit 1 on that. That's cool. But then it falls apart when the 5 cost isn't. So you're already paying 1 for the mediocre 5 cost, and then you have to pay another 1 to go into the 6 cost, and then you need to pay again. You just spent free energy. That's the biggest issue. It's just the fact that, like, if 5 cost was free, this deck would have been so much better. But the 5 cost costs an energy. And yeah, you're playing a blue deck that struggles with paying so much energy just to play like mediocre cards. The permanent is okay. There's nothing really bad with the permanent. The entire gimmick of removing cards from other cards to get some buffs is cute. The gameplay is fun. So as much as bricky the deck is, and as clunky it can be and expensive, the gameplay is fun. So the only problem is that it's just kind of not worth the energy. One card that you absolutely must have in the deck, if you wish to play it, is the Promo Broly. Because the best line of play that you can do is that thing is a dual attacker, you give it Servant with Paragus, and then you swing 35k twice. And if you do that, you can have this weird world in which you basically swing with a massive leader and then a big 5 cost, and then go into a 35k dual attacker for 1 energy. That's cool, but I still feel like that's not enough. I feel like this is the deck, it pokes you and it costs so much for it to poke you, but it doesn't have the big finisher. Like the red Broly swap is much better than this. Like the red Broly did the entire swap thing so much better. This one costs energy. That's the big problem. The 8 cost is just bad. So I believe that it's a deck that's I don't think that there is anything much more to say here. You'll just run out of resources, and you'll spend resources to do meh things. When it comes to aggro, there's better aggro blue decks. That being said, I don't feel like this deck is trash. I don't want to be too stern in my judgment. So I feel like it's still a fun deck to play. I've played it a bit and I've had fun playing it. So I feel like it's fun to play and it can be locals. But I don't think that with it having to pay for literally everything, that it goes anywhere higher than that. And yeah, you can argue, well, you don't go higher than the 6 cost, but then you're still spending 2 energy to get there. And then if you want to establish another 5 cost, you're spending another energy. Okay, let's go to the next one. Green Vegito. This is another good one. So this is a breath of fresh air after Broly. This one is actually quite good. There are 2 ways to run it. You can do hyper aggro with Hyper Rush Vegito, and there is a world where you can go into it fast, take your own swing, take your own lives, fall into the threshold where you can use the Z leader, use active main, go into Z leader, swing double for game. Like there is like this hyper aggro version with Hyper Rush Vegito. There is also the other version, the one which I actually prefer, and that is the burn version. Vegito can burn your opponents passively. Just by playing the boss monster, you can burn them down to 2 lives, then you need to deal 1 single point of damage, after which you can just sell max Bojack for the game. So it's more control oriented, and that's the one that I prefer, honestly. Now, what else does the deck have going for it? It has one very cool thing. It's great at killing unisons without any interaction at all. Because on the front side, you can Z-charge the Gohan rare for free with activate main, pay 1 and then just kill a Z unison. Honestly, you're up until a certain point, up until like turn 3, you're not even really in the rush to awaken. I mean, like you get a bigger leader and everything, but the Potara really starts to shine at turn 3. So basically, yeah, you can just stay unawakened and kill a couple of Z unisons for dirt cheap if you wish to do so. The Vegito Z unison is amazing. The Z unison is really, really good. It can also do the same. So once you awaken, you can just keep on killing Z unisons with your SS4 Vegito. Other than that, it plays a field card, but it's not impactful enough to ranking cold, because you'll be using the field card most of the time. It has access to uneasing, it has access to dormant. It's a green Saiyan, which is a big deal because of said uneasing. It can run all of the green good stuff in it. The draw is pretty nice in the deck. So overall, I feel like this deck is competitive. However, it falls behind Gohan and Goku. Arguably Cell. So I would say like it's a step above Cell and Bojack solely because it's a Saiyan. And by the time I'm filming this video, at this point in time, the ban list hasn't dropped. It's dropping tomorrow. So that's like basically the idea, right? You don't know whether or not uneasing is gonna get hit. And I'm assuming that it's not. And based on that assumption, this deck is tier 2. I think it's a competitive deck. I think you can go and you can do very, very well with it. But I don't feel like people will actually be doing that. I feel like people will just play something else instead. Next on our list is my favorite deck in the entire set, Green Zamasu. It's probably one of my favorite decks of all time. Like this deck, it's God-given for someone like me. It's a green mill deck. It has hand destruction elements. It's really, really cool. It's very strong. I would say that it is the best mill deck in the entire game. You don't need your opponent to do anything for you to mill them, which is a bonus over cooler. Your cards are pretty strong themselves. You mill proactively and you play battle cards. It has a big engine, but it's not crippled by it. For example, Sin Zeno is crippled by its own engine. The engine is not that good, but you have to run it. So Zamasu just has a very good engine, and he mills you. Now, I have seen this deck mill anywhere from like 4 to 10 cards a turn. Like the longer the game goes, the more explosive your mill is. Because all of your mill pieces cost 1 energy, and you can just keep swarming them and evolving and unioning more and more and more and just devastate your opponent's entire deck. Zamasu is godsend for mill. So, let's see. Weaknesses. Cannot use uneasing. That's basically it. It can use Dormant. We're assuming the Dormant doesn't get hit on the ban list. So there are some decks like Kitku can be a problem, because you will just mill his skillless cards, and then he'll say thank you and just play them for free. So Kitku can be an issue, but at that point you really just have to punch him, because you're probably not gonna win that matchup by milling him. So you have to punch him instead. Other than that, I think that the deck is relatively fine. I think not relatively fine. I think it's fine into other matchups. I feel like it's strong. I feel like it's the best mill deck in the entire game. And I'm going to put him into competitive. I feel like this deck is really competitive. Next we have... Okay, so let me explain this very, very briefly. So listen up everyone. Here's how we're gonna handle the big enigma. We are assuming that this deck receives an errata so that you can awaken normally. Okay, at the moment you can't awaken normally unless you play Gokus outside of your archetype, which aren't really built for this, and that just kind of makes the entire deck bad. Not bad, it makes it worse. When it comes to this deck, under assumption that it gets the proper errata, this is one of the best decks in the game. This deck is insane. The amount of aggro that you can put out on turn 2 the moment you awaken is crazy, and then the rest of the deck is just pure gas. You're just a pure gas deck. You're not stopping. You're playing your things for free. You're drawing cards. You're swapping like crazy, and you are just hitting your opponent over and over and over again. It's the best yellow aggro deck. I feel like it's better than Oceanus with the errata, of course. And yeah, it suffers the same problem that every aggro deck suffers, and that is what when you run into a floodgate. Every red deck suffers from that. Your opponent needs to draw one of their 4 floodgates, unless they're green. So if that doesn't happen, you're just gonna beat them senseless. So under consideration that the deck works as it should, this is tier 1. This deck is tier 1. It's amazing. Then we have Cell. Okay, Cell, the big Bugman. Okay, so what do we do with the Bugman? First, 9 green Cell, not counting Cell Max. Okay, and not counting the Surge. It depends. It requires a very, very big archetype. You have to run almost everything in playsets in this deck. Some things you can run lower than playsets, but you're running a massive engine. So the majority of the deck goes to that. You still have some room for good stuff. Drawing, card to draw is okay. It's not the best. Your hand is not gonna be the biggest hand, but it is decent. Because you have your, let's say, you draw from your ladder, and then you have your unison, you draw 2, and then you stack 2 back to the top of your deck, and let's say you get them under a card, and that one of them is the Cell which draws, so when you active main it, you draw another one, so only now you have +2. I mean, it takes a lot to have a big hand with this deck. But let's focus first on the archetype. So the archetype I think is very good. I think that you have quite an arsenal here to deal with. You have your 6 cost, which restand something. That card is phenomenal. You have the 7 cost, which can KO things ignoring barrier, not limit to 1. So when you give a dual attack with the 6 cost, it KOs 2 things ignoring barrier, and it can give itself +5k, so it's a 30k double striker KO 2 things ignoring barrier. That card is bloody amazing. You have the super rare, which is also great. The super rare is also very good. It's a crit guy. It can absorb something. It depends a lot on the cards under it. So if it's crit dual, that's cool, but I don't feel like it's as strong as the other one. It just flat out deletes barrier cards. The other fat cell, the fat cell is fine. There is a cell which it draws, and that one is cool, and then the rest are just kind of fine. The SCR is cute, but you're not really gonna run it in this deck, at least not in a competitive setting. So what's up with this deck? Well, thinking about it, I don't think that it's competitive. I think it's difficult to pilot properly. I feel like this deck is very difficult to pilot properly. In theory, it has everything that it needs to have to beat you. It's a big toolbox deck, and it's a very, very strong toolbox deck. So, but it's like Helku done properly. Like, Helku is just bad. This is like the BT14 SS4 yellow Goku, but done better. So I don't think like it's gonna be competitive or meta defining, but I think we're gonna see it in a couple of tops. So I'm placing him in Rogue. And that brings us to the very last deck, Golden Cooler. I filmed this tier list and then I have changed it after testing Golden Cooler a bit more, and after Peter showed me some results of his testing, so I had to film the entire thing all over again. Yeah, Golden Cooler, a lot of people are, I don't want to say shitting on the deck. I think it's a general consensus that the deck is fun to play and that it's kinda mid. I am not sure on the kinda mid statement though, because from what I have seen this deck do, and from what some brief testing showed, you can swarm your board like a madman. You can swarm the board of 20k attackers starting on turn 2 like an absolute madman. The deck is exceptionally defensive. Defensively, the deck is amazing. Like, the SR is great. You can just make your boss monster 20k for the entire turn for no investment at all, which is insane. You can use your unison to play cards on your opponent's turn, draw, and then you also give them blocker. The deck draws like crazy, because active main, you pitch one, you draw two, and then you also draw one on your opponent's turn when you play something. That's great, so you will have a big hand. Defensively, the deck is amazing. Offensively, I've considered, toying with, let's say, Cumber and Evil Saiyan and something, but the more I've played it, the more I feel like offensively the deck is also very good. Because you can swarm a lot with this deck. You can play on turn 2, you can drop down 2 bodies, and then you drop the third one the moment your opponent swings. That's big. Plus you have your unison, and the 2 bodies that you've played are going to be 20k if everything went properly. So both of the cooler SRs are good. Of course, the big boss monster is better defensively because he's a floodgate. I just feel like there's a lot going on for this deck. You don't run a lot of overwhelms in the deck. You absolutely don't run a lot of overwhelms in this deck, because you don't want to do that. You need to keep dancing your cards back and forward, and you need them to move at specific periods of time to do specific things. So if you're going with an overwhelm strategy with like the promo with Goku and Vegeta, or Heated Fighting Spirit, or just Bardock, or just heavy overwhelm, you're gonna screw yourself over. I don't think that that's the way to go. Now, looking at it from a meta perspective, the deck can dish out a lot of pain and he can survive. He can definitely survive a lot of things. Like, the leader is big, there is a floodgate, there's a way to boost everything up, there's a way to summon blockers, give them barrier if you need to. So yeah, there is a lot going on here. Offensively, it can contest some decks. The leader can become massive. If you're floodgated, the leader can just become massive and attack instead of your cards. I feel like the SR counterplay plays the Goku and Vegeta counterplay plays a big role in the success of this one, and if that gets hit on the ban list, it's not gonna be as good, because that one warps something, makes the leader 20k, and then you play something else, blah blah blah, he becomes 25k for the turn. 25k baseline is big. So anyway, I feel like it's gonna be overshadowed. Vegito, Goku, SSG Trunks, Cumber, Hechiak. Those 5 are probably better than this one. So he's overshadowed, he's not your first choice. But I feel confident that the deck is good enough that you can top with it. So I'm gonna put him in Rogue. Yeah, and you can go on and call me crazy. So yeah, that's the deck, that's the tier, oh my god, the deck list. The deck list is out next week. That's the tier list. That's it for the video. Let me know in the comments below, what is your BT26 tier list? Now if you take a look at the blurred one, that was the tier list before this one. So yeah, it has changed a bit. But yeah, anyway, let me know what's your BT26 tier list. I know that I haven't mentioned Mai from pre-release. I'm gonna mention her in the big tier list video. The deck is just bad, you're never gonna play it. But anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from you all of the things that I got wrong. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I read all of your comments. I try to respond to everything. I love our little community, I really do. I appreciate every single one of you who comes to watch these videos. This is the best hobby ever, and it's all possible because of you, so thank you for that. And of course, while you're here, share the video around, hit those like and subscribe buttons, help us get to 6k subs when I'm gonna give away a booster box. This has been Damien from the Lookout, and I'll see all of you in the next video.